Welcome, guys, to the podcast. I'm Duke Lamastra. Joining me for this episode is a good friend of mine, Caleb Hyers. Caleb's been on the podcast in the past. He's the senior leader at a church called The Resting Place in Tampa, Florida. He's written multiple books. He's got a brand new podcast that he's doing right now, Caleb Hyers Podcast. And I really encourage you to subscribe to his YouTube channel. He has awesome long-form conversations with leaders in the body of Christ. Also encourage you to check out his books because they will bless you. Caleb came on the podcast today to discuss his new book, Pull, Don't Push, which we did for about 30 seconds as we were running out of time at the end of the episode because we went down some deep rabbit holes. We spent a lot of time talking about artificial intelligence. We got into some eschatology, talked about the rapture, talked about Nephilim and the age of the earth, and we went down some rabbit holes. But I really do encourage you to check out the book. It's a very, very short, simple read. It's a book on leadership designed to help you become a more effective leader as you focus on leading by serving others and pulling people with you as opposed to pushing them to work for you. So I appreciate Caleb for all the work that he does to mature the saints in love and for just everything that he shares, the wisdom he shares in this episode. It's important to note we were having a lot of fun here, and it was a very raw and just unscripted and unexpected conversation. But we did talk about a lot of spiritual implications and theological implications and really what the role of the church or what our response could be or should be, or maybe we could consider that it could be our response to this cultural age that we're living in, this technological revolution with all the advancements in artificial intelligence, what this means for us, and how we can use these tools to advance and to not just advance our own lives, but to advance the kingdom. And so really, very, really good conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and bless you as you listen. Caleb, buddy, good to see you, man. How are you?
Great to see you. Doing well. It's been almost a year, apparently, since we talked, which that flew by. But yeah.
Crazy, bro. I can't believe how fast we've had a year now since we've moved to Sugar Land, Texas, just kind of south of Houston. And this year just flew by, man. But yeah, we're here and I'm loving it. I'm loving Texas, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your favorite part?
I really there's a lot of stuff that I like about it. The one thing I don't like is the heat, but we had that in Alabama and you have that in Tampa. It's just the thing. It's what it is. But I love that so compared to where I lived before in Alabama, which we were very happy in Mobile, Alabama. Nothing negative to say about it, but there's definitely there's more to do here. The food here is awesome. We did quite a bit of exploring for the first maybe 6 months that we were here, just with the kids and just going and checking stuff out and trying to find stuff out that's nearby within an hour and a half and that kind of thing. So we've man, there's stuff to do. There's stuff if we need to do something to keep the kids occupied and that sort of thing, we find there's a lot more going on. And I like the proximity to a large city. I've always been drawn to that city vibe. And we don't go into Houston a ton because it's just a whole thing. But I like the fact that it's
right? You just like that it's there, but it's pretty busy, yeah?
Very busy, yeah. Very busy.
That's downtown Tampa. All Tampa people viciously try to avoid downtown Tampa. Maybe not all of us, but it's just crazy. But
how far are you from the city?
12 minutes.
30, oh, wow.
Maybe 15.
Unless
there's traffic, then it can be 45, but 20 minutes at most, but I'm just outside of that. I have an office in Ybor, which is the original downtown Tampa. So, but it's the historic district. And so that's 15 minutes, but then downtown it's literally 3 minutes over. So anyway,
I saw the other day or maybe it was even yesterday, I don't know, but I saw you post something where your team tried to trick you that they got
I got
raptured and you got left.
I got left behind. Yeah, we've come to the point in our staff that they have begun to prank me. It took 5.5 years. Never have I been pranked before on our church staff until this week. But
Wow.
there's a video forthcoming. It's not out yet, but there were three different phones taking video of the event. But
That's funny.
they did it big, man. The funny thing is I didn't even notice if you're listening to this, or try to describe, but there's, the whole, they put their clothes out on the chairs, they put the shoes on the ground. It looked like they got like Left Behind movie, like exactly like that. But I walked into the room where we have staff meeting, and I didn't actually even see the clothes at first, because in the next room, there's a door that you can go between two rooms, an internal door. They had that door cracked, and our youth pastor was in the other room blowing a real shofar. I'm not kidding. So I walk in and I hear the sound of a trumpet, and my mind doesn't even go where, the joke's supposed to take you. I didn't even see the clothes. I just thought, who's learning a shofar right now? Like it was pretty like, it was a little feeble, but still there. It had the power.
Yeah.
You could tell she was trying not to laugh while doing it. So
Gotcha.
anyway, I was like, who is trying to learn the shofar right now? Where is that coming from? And I realized the door's cracked. I just kind of like pushed the door open, and they're all standing there with their phones, cracking up, dying, laughing. And I'm just like, and I just closed the door in their face, and then turn around and like, there's all the clothes on the table and the chairs. I'm like, oh wow. So had to take a photo, but I got left behind.
Meanwhile, in the realm of the spirit, she's like blowing the shofar, try not to laugh, doing some kind of like very specific battle cry that's got the angels all riled up now.
Yeah, they're very confused. They're like, "Wah!" But no,
let's go. Oh wait.
They laughed a lot harder than I did, but I laughed at them laughing, and because I was like, we got a very short time for this staff meeting, y'all. Like, we got to jump into this. But anyway, it was one of those days where I was pressed. Like, I have a meeting right after this. Like, I cannot. And I'm like, all right, that was hilarious. Jesus, help us have a meeting now. Come on. But anyway,
that's so funny.
Had to post about it.
That's awesome, dude.
Worthy of an Instagram post for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've always thought about doing that to people, and I never did it.
Well, so here's the backstory. And this is something that we can talk about, the merit of this, but I lead a church called The Resting Place. Just this year, we started this year at a silent retreat. So the practice of silence is something that, probably is a shock to some people to hear that I actually regularly am silent. But we go on these 48-hour silent retreats, done it over and over again. I've been on probably 20 of them now over the last few years. And we helped actually launch an organization, and where I'm an overseer for it. It's called Kala. Actually, they do it all over the world. If you want to check it out, Kala Culture, not the world yet, the United States, kalaculture.org. And anybody can come, and it's an all expenses paid type thing where you sit down and you don't have to worry about anything. You just have silence. You put in all technology. You turn in your phone, things like that, and then you just sit with the Lord. So it's really powerful. It's like a monastic fast, and just a noise fast. And so this year we did it as a team, as a staff, really as leaders of the Resting Place, some paid, non-paid, all that, key leaders of our church. So we started the year in silence, and it was really powerful and really beautiful. But I wouldn't lie to you, there are times where you just kind of get bored a little bit because you're used to a certain pace of living. And then when you slow it down so much, it's like, there is so much time in the day. People are like, I don't have enough time in the day. No, you have tons of time. It's just spending your time inefficiently, So, I mean, we are, in silence. I'm kind of having one of those moments of kind of boredom, not boredom, but like, feeling like I need to do something. And somebody left like a lawn chair right outside the main house. And I just had this idea. I didn't do it. I wish I would have done it. But I told them afterwards. I told the staff this after we were out of silence. I was like, I had this idea, and it was brilliant because we're silent and people can't react to it vocally. But I was going to get like an extra pair of clothes, something I wear all the time, like my shoes, and like put them on the sidewalk like I got raptured, and hide in the bushes and just sit there and watch people who can't say anything like react to it. And I didn't do it, but I told them I should do it. And then, a week later, of course, they planned this whole thing. They brought in a shofar and,
Yeah.
that. So it's my own fault, but it was hilarious. So.
That probably doesn't even, well, I don't know. Does it even go along with your theology?
Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest.
It doesn't go along with my theology at all, but
no.
Still, it's hilarious.
The
Even if there was a rapture, which obviously rapture is not even a biblical term, but like if there was a rapture, it's just funny that we assume that we'll just be taken naked,
right,
and all of our clothes left behind. But
right.
I mean, I don't know.
That was one of the comments. One of the comments from one of our church members was like, the clue is there's no underwear. If you really were committed, you would have left your underwear.
Yeah.
And because there's no underwear on the chairs, it was just shirts and pants and stuff to like see.
But they'd be inside the pants, right?
I guess. I don't know.
They wouldn't fly out.
Depends on how visceral the rapture event is. Like how
if it's like,
are you getting jerked out of your clothing? Like what's happening? Yeah. Why are we up in the air, caught in the air, naked with the Lord? Anyway. No, I don't agree.
It's a seamless transition from the clothes to the robe.
Yeah.
Nobody sees you naked.
There it is.
It just happens so fast.
See,
you get whiplash so fast.
While we're being extra biblical, we might as well make that make sense, right?
We might as well.
The rapture is extremely extra biblical.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway. Yeah. But yeah, it was
Love
funny.
It, man.
It was funny.
That's great. Well, dude, you've been so busy. I feel like this year I didn't realize I was a little bit behind. I think so. You wrote 3 books or put out 3 books last year, right?
Did I? I don't know.
I think so, because I wasn't aware of one called The God of Generations.
Oh yeah, I did write 3. That one's an ebook. Yeah. I didn't put that one to print, but it's an ebook and it's a short read, just affirming that God is not a microwave oven God. He's not, he's a multi-generational God. And it was inspired by a mentor of mine, Joseph Matera, who's become a dear friend. Really appreciate his writings and his teachings. And anyway, just that he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we don't give enough credit to the timeline of God. We want everything done in our lifetime, even prophetic words over our lives. Like sometimes I think that God is speaking over our family lines, not necessarily just over us. And because that's how God sees things. He seems to be very patient, right? Like he speaks to David about things that, his son are going to do. And then he looks forward and backwards, and there's all these different examples. So that little ebook is just an admonition to the church to say, hey, listen, God is working in your generational line. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he might be wanting to start something in you and finish it in your grandchildren. And you should be okay with the glory of God going forth in a timeline that doesn't involve you getting the credit. So that's the idea behind that one. I forgot I wrote that one.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
It's simple, short. Yep.
Yeah, that's a concept that I feel like that's something my wife talks about a lot. So I'm going to have to recommend this book to her. And I don't think that's a subject. I mean, as far as I'm aware, that's a subject that I think there's a ton of material written about, which is hard to come across these days because there's so many books on everything.
Yeah. But I was really inspired by, actually, this is the book from Joseph Matera. It's on my desk right now, Walking Generational Blessings. A lot of people talk about generational curses. What about generational blessings?
Yeah.
So he's talking about leaving a legacy of transformation through your family. So he wrote like a textbook on it. I wrote an ebook. So I recommend both of those. But yeah, that was a short little thing. I did that at the beginning, middle to the year sometime. Yep.
Love it.
And then the other, I don't know if you want to stay on that or jump into the other two, but
do you think it was irresponsible that we just said that the rapture is not biblical and then left it? I was just thinking about that.
Maybe.
Was that an irresponsible pastoral thing to just leave it like that? Or do you think,
Pastor Duke, you're probably right. You're probably right. Maybe we should circle back to that. It's, what's his name? The guy who, of course I'm blanking now, but it is a novel and new construct in the span of the history of the church. There's no writings of it in the early church fathers or anything like that. The interpretation of, is it First Thessalonians? I don't remember what chapter, but that we will be
4 or
caught,
5, one of
4,
those.
I think it is. Yeah. Caught up in the air with the Lord. And this whole
For
idea
the
of
change in the moment, twinkling of an eye, that sort of
twinkling
thing.
in the eye. Yeah. But it also says right before that, I believe, that the sky will be rolled up like a blanket, like literally a blanket. And so I think we need to be careful when approaching allegorical language, metaphorical language, and specific, obvious, exacting language in the scriptures. We need to know the difference. And so that, who's the guy? He put out a study Bible. Oh man, what's his name? The guy who pioneered the Rapture
Is
ideology.
it Schofield or
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So the Schofield Bible was one of the first like study Bibles that came out with a heavy amount of commentary and notes in the margins and in the footnotes, things like that. He kind of pioneered that. And it had a heavy, not the translation was fine, but with in the footnotes had a heavy leaning towards that.
Right.
And they basically handed those out to like seminary graduates like hotcakes. And so a lot of people who went to seminary and had a Schofield Bible is just, it got in there and seeped in there, but it's really not. My opinion, this is Caleb's opinion, is that it does not have biblical legs to stand on. I can't find them. And I think it's actually a dangerous mentality because it goes right against the posture of Jesus in his parables and his kingdom presentation. Like the kingdom of God is at hand. What does that mean? Right. And he said, tell parables like occupy until I return, right? The going away and the coming back. I believe in the bodily return of Jesus. I just don't believe in the rapture, get me off of earth and into heaven mindset, right? He said, pray this way, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The rapture mindset, when applied, usually becomes get me out of earth and into heaven.
Me out.
Get me out of here because it's all,
get me out of my clothes and everything. I don't want none of it.
Right. Get me out of all these temporal things. And I think there's an escapist application that is very common. So we're to judge things by the fruit, right? So I can't find biblical legs for it to stand on. And I judge the fruit as people leaving a vacuum in culture. And this is what happened over the last 150 years. We've left a vacuum in culture. We left a vacuum in politics. We left a vacuum everywhere. Not that Christians have to be in charge of everything, but I'm saying that influence has been lost by and large, where the church had some culturally before, and now it's lost. Not that we necessarily have to have like a Christian president, or I'm not that guy either who swings to the other extreme, like some of the Seven Mountains ideologies of like, we have to have, 90% of Congress has to be Christian. Like, I think God can use pretty much anyone. But, and governments are governments. They're never going to be the church. The church has a role to influence nations, to disciple nations. And I think there's been an abdication of the role and the escapist impact from the rapture theology that has come from all of that. So that's why I'm not in agreement with it. And again, I want to be biblical in my Christianity, and I can't defend it biblically. So it messes with me. What are your thoughts? I mean, just to be responsible here.
Very good. Yeah, no, it's very good. One of the things that always kind of bothered me, even before I spent a significant amount of time digging into eschatology, was like, why would God? Because considering even the timeline, even if we were to accept all the other stuff that's kind of in that pre-tribulation rapture sort of ideology and that sort of thing, it's like, why would God pull his people out at the most crucial time in human history?
Right.
When all throughout history, every single thing that he's ever done on the earth has been in partnership with people that he's working through to accomplish his purposes.
Right.
And to like pull the church out in that moment of time, I was like, well, what? Not that God can't just do what he wants, but I was like, it just doesn't seem to make sense. And so as I started really like reading Revelation, I was like, no, like this is the unfolding, the unveiling of Jesus. This is not, what we've
kind of
looked at Revelation to be in the past, of this like creepy, scary end time battle, like something to be afraid of and that sort of thing. And so, yeah.
Let's really just upset the apple cart, Duke. Why not? It's your podcast, not mine. So let's get in lots of trouble. Sound good?
Yeah, let's get in trouble. I'm cool with it.
Kidding. You know, I totally agree with you. And I think it's dangerous because it does go against the timeline, like you said so eloquently. The way God has always worked is through people in times of crisis. Why would he remove his people in the highest moment of crisis? It doesn't seem like his nature. And he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. You know, not that he can't do new things, which, you know, that's scriptural. But, you know, some people apply Matthew 24, which I think is actually the worst. I don't think a lot of scholars apply Matthew 24 to the rapture, but a lot of pastors do. You know, when it says one will be working in the field and the other will be left, one will be grinding at the meal. That movie that you all watched definitely applied Matthew 24, right? Yeah. But that's I don't think true scholars do that, to be fair to the academic world, but regular pastors, I've heard them do it. Have you heard this be applied?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, many times.
Okay. What's interesting about that passage in Matthew 24 is the beginning of it says it will be as in the days of Noah, just like in the days of Noah. Okay, so I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but this is going to upset some people. It says it will be as in the days of Noah. One will be taken and one will be left behind. One will be taken away and one will be left behind on the earth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the days of Noah, who at the end of the day was left behind on the earth?
The sinners.
No, at the end of the day, it was Noah. Noah was left on the earth. Noah and his family remained on the earth. Are you?
I thought you were talking about the people. My mind was in a different place. I thought you were talking about the people that were left out of the ark.
No, because those people were taken away in the flood.
Yeah.
They were removed from the earth. God saw that the nature of and heart of man was deceitful and completely irredeemable, right? And he took them away. They were gone. Noah was left behind. And I know it's like it's
the opposite.
Your brain is working for the other argument because it's been presented that way. But the truth is, Noah and his family went into the ark. They stayed on the earth the entire time. Someone else was taken away into judgment. Some translations, like even the Amplified, say in Matthew 24, one will be taken away into judgment and the other left. And so who was judged on the earth in the days of Noah? Was it Noah or was it the rest of them? So if Brian Simmons says it this way, and I'm going to repeat him, if that's talking about the rapture or whatever it is, I want to be left behind because that means I'm still breathing. I'm not drowning in the waters of judgment. So anyway, lots of, I'm saying, I'm not defending that as a theological position. I'm saying it doesn't make any sense to apply that to the end times of the rapture. It breaks down in many different ways. That's just one of them. So not to mention, I think the flood was actually because of the sin of the Watchers and the Nephilim and the half-breed of humans and angels, if you want to get into that. But anyway, how upset do we want to make everyone today? Sorry, I'm feeling spicy.
That might be one of the most intense conversations we could have.
Have you read Michael Heiser's stuff on that?
Not a lot.
Yeah, he wrote a whole book called Reversing Herman. I read it over the Christmas break. Whoa.
Oh, did you?
You want to turn your brain into soup? Read that.
Dude.
Talking about the Enochian template that was culturally just paramount to the New Testament writers, and not saying Enoch should be canonized or anything like that, but just saying that the Enochian template, the understanding of the sin of the Watchers, all this stuff, how Jesus was reversing the sin of the Watchers through so many different things, and how it happened on Mount Hermon according to Enoch, and all this crazy stuff. And it makes a lot of sense. But I mean, he's basically compiling a bunch of scholarly work that's not talked about. It's a whole thing about the sin of the Watchers, the Nephilim. Every culture on the earth has two main things in them. Every single ancient culture, a flood and some hybrid between deity and man. Some and like an angel or like Hercules, a demigod, right? And like the
Yeah.
Anunnaki in Mesopotamia, and like all
Yeah.
these different. So it's kind of hard to ignore as a student of history, that it was a prevailing cultural understanding. And Genesis 6:1-4 does say that angels left their proper abode, found the women of the
Right.
earth to be comely, and had
Right.
offspring with them. So that is
Right.
biblical. People don't want to talk
Yeah.
about it. It's the nephilim, or however you say it. And,
Hmm.
you know, so
Yeah.
anyway, I think the flood was to get rid of the children of the watchers, because they were trying to
Mm.
infiltrate the seed of the woman, because the enemy knew that
Yeah.
the seed of the woman would strike, the head of the serpent, and they're like, well, we're just going to disrupt the seed.
Trying to get ahead of it. Yeah.
So anyway,
Dude, yeah. It's
easy
crazy because
conversations today. Easy
obviously this is
conversations.
not where I thought this was going to go, but it's super like, because there's been all this lately. There's been a lot of alien talk, and there's been a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of different things like that going on. And when you look at certain things, like I've been listening to some arguments lately about certain things like the age of the pyramids and different
Uh-huh.
things like that, and we have this concept in our minds of the timeline of when everything was built and everything else. But it's like, that's one of those things. It's like, how did they build those pyramids?
Yeah, how did that
How
happen?
did regular humans build those
Doesn't
pyramids?
seem humanly possible.
It's great. Like, we couldn't even do it today with
Right.
all the technology we have and everything. Like, something extreme was going on at the time when all of that took place, that I mean, we're talking about stones on those pyramids that weigh like tons, like
Yes.
50 tons, and more.
Ridiculous. We wouldn't be able
And
to move them, like you said, with modern equipment.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And they're
have you
perfectly put together. They're perfectly positioned with like constellations and like all this kind of stuff. The
with the
understanding of,
the polarization of the Earth, north, south, east, west,
hmm
all the stuff, and yeah, the constellations. Have you read any of Enoch? Have you read that?
I read Enoch like a long time ago,
Yeah,
like
it's
probably when
trippy.
I was in Bible college.
It's
Yeah.
very trippy. But one thing he says in there that makes some of that make sense, and again, this is not doctrine. This is just a fun
Right.
conversation with friends.
Right. Yeah. We're just
Um,
having fun.
just talking. Um, the caveat upon caveat here. Um,
Yeah.
the One of the things that the Watchers did, according to Enoch, was not only just impregnate women of the earth and have offspring, the giants. That's where the giants came from. Um, and then there's conversation there of the localized flood. How did the giants survive? Was that a one-time event, or did they do it again? All the that stuff. But one thing that's interesting, when I read it in Enoch, it says that they gave the human race forbidden knowledge. They taught them
Mm,
the cutting of herbs, advanced mathematics. They taught them then even makeup, it's actually in Enoch talking about like how to deceive men, right? And
yes. Yeah.
some women truly are deceiving the men in their life with the amount of makeup. That's not your face. Like, we want your face.
Right.
All right. You're beautiful.
Right.
Use your face, please. All right. I'm
Yeah.
thankful. I'm not saying
In
don't wear
modern day
makeup.
with modern day
Yeah.
with filters, it's a whole
It's
nother level.
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. With AI, all that stuff. So
Hmm.
definitely another level. But they
Hmm.
taught, even it talks about how to kill a child in the womb. Talks about that thing, those type of things in Enoch. And it says, and
Mm,
then astrology, the study of the stars, all this stuff. But the forbidden knowledge of mathematics and science, for me, I'm like, well, that would make the pyramids make sense if
yeah.
there's forbidden knowledge, advanced mathematics, and things like that. And there's these giant human beings on the planet back in that day or whatever that built this stuff. And the Egyptians just found them
Yeah.
and built a civilization around the pyramids. You know what I mean? It just, using my logical brain, it makes sense. I can't, there's no way to truly know. I don't think we haven't made a discovery, archaeologically speaking, to know.
Hmm.
But it would make sense. It would make
Yeah.
sense. So,
Do you have any personal thoughts on things like the age of the earth and that sort of thing? Like, what
mm,
are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it's the young earth holds up, which is traditionally the traditional Christian view, I think, is that the earth's about 6,000 years old.
right.
Um, And then there's the old Earth, which, I mean, according to evolutionists, it's somewhere between like 13 and 24 billion years old.
Yeah.
So
I
big gap, big
yeah,
difference there.
huge, right? So let me we're using caveats today. So I
Yeah,
believe
no,
the
we're just having fun. This is not,
yeah.
you know.
No, great. I love this stuff. I think science and God are actually they're not opposed. I believe science is
Absolutely.
actually discovering God just a little
100%.
slower than faith can. That's the way I look at it.
That's good.
But they'll get there eventually. But I can say that I'm not researched enough to make an intelligent comment on which one I think is for sure correct. I
Mhm.
find holes in both of the arguments, and I have a lot of questions about the veracity of how we get to our timelines, right? Because one day is 1,000 years to the Lord, and
Right.
so even Genesis, right? Like he made that it's made in 7 days. Are those 7 literal days, or
Right.
are those each 1,000 years? And there, right there, if it's 7, then the earth is 7,000 years old by the time Adam gets here. So,
Right.
so I don't know. I don't think there's enough. The way the information was passed down orally, the way it was put into story form, the way that we're looking through the lens of Greek philosophy into the ancient texts of Hebrew and Aramaic, and they didn't think like we think. And so
Correct. Yeah.
we're trying to apply lenses they didn't have. And so I don't think that's fair to
Mhm.
make an estimate there. And honestly, I don't care if it's old or young.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just feel like, I'm not saying it's an unworthy conversation. I'm just saying
Mhm.
I haven't put a lot of energy into like finding a deep conviction about either one of those. I know people in the apologetics world really care about that. It's a hotly debated thing. But I'll let them do what they do.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm
Yeah.
not sure that we are even asking the right questions or looking at it the right way. I don't know.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
my best answer
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, yeah, because I think that it's talking about this kind of stuff when you try to approach God from like a purely just rational, logical kind of a mindset, then I think you you end up conclude a lot of people end up concluding that, well, science doesn't support this. Science
Sure.
doesn't support God. Science doesn't support the claims of the Bible. And it's like, well, a lot of it is, I think, our interpretation. I mean, we don't know from in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth was without form and void. Like from like verse 1 to verse 2 to verse 3, like we don't know how much time is passing.
Right.
Like the Spirit of God moving, hovering over the face of the waters and all of that. Like we don't know. It could be it could be millions of years. It could
Yes.
be a moment. It could, like, I mean, we just don't know. So it's like you said, it's possible that the earth could be like extremely ancient, but
Yep.
it's also possible because, like, I don't know when dinosaurs were around, and I don't know about all this, like all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a way that we can approach God, and we can approach these kinds of theological questions that we can mess ourselves up to the point
Mm-hmm.
that we try to like reason God out of the the discussion and just say, oh, well, that must not be true. Like what they taught me must not be true because these scientific conclusions don't support it. And so everything that
Right.
they said wasn't true, or everything that I learned in children's church or Sunday school or Bible college or whatever, like it's not true because this isn't true. So I do think we need to be careful, and we need to focus, like, what I mean? I think it's healthy to focus the majority of our time and attention, other than just, we're having fun with this, but the majority
Sure.
of our time and focus and attention on the things that, like, let's say scripture focuses on. Because
Yes.
if it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, if
Yes.
it was really the most important thing, or one of the most important things for us to consider, then there'd be more time devoted to it in the Word of God, I think.
I agree. I
Right.
agree. And I think that, yeah, again, it's a worthwhile discussion. I'm hope nobody listening is like, oh, I really care about that. And they're saying it's stupid. It's not stupid. It
No, it's
matters.
not.
It's good. It's
Yeah.
just I just personally don't have a strong
Yeah.
conviction either way, but I can, you brought it up about Genesis 1 and how much time was between those first 3 verses, that question alone, you actually have to filter through Genesis 1, because I just looked it up. Genesis 1 verse 14 is when it says, let the lights be in the expanse of the heavens, separate day from night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, for days and years, and
that's
let them
like day
give light.
4, right?
Yeah. So here's the question. Is it even appropriate to say how much time passed before time was measured?
Yeah. Right.
Because it says
Right.
the sun and the moon are for days and see. So are we saying we should, time didn't exist till day 4,
Yeah.
What is a day without time?
Yeah.
So that'll turn your
Man.
brain to soup. Just saying.
Yeah.
I don't think we can know, is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think
we can know.
That's why I'm like, these are the wrong questions. Like, time is a measuring stick that God created on day 4.
Yeah.
So days 1 through 3 didn't have the same measurement as days 4 on to 2,000 years later or whatever.
That's good.
I mean, 60,000, 40 billion thousand. I don't know. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there.
That's good.
It doesn't make sense to me to measure time when time didn't exist yet. So
right. Okay. I love it. I just want to, I'm just trying to be responsible.
Yeah.
And fill all of our little rabbit holes that we're opening.
I love
just
it.
making sure that they're looping back and connecting at the end.
You're great at that. You're a genius. Because I'll just throw it out there and move on. I'll just keep going.
Brain pain for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's great.
You did say something earlier that got me thinking. So you mentioned earlier, and you kind of mentioned it in passing as you were going to your point, but you made reference to the fact that the church hasn't always done the best job of being as involved in just cultural moments and cultural movements and that sort of thing. And one of the big things that's going on right now, and you and I mentioned this briefly before we started recording, one of the big shifts right now, just technologically speaking, in our world today, is this move toward artificial intelligence.
Yep.
And how it is very, very much, very quickly, and in very maybe unprecedented ways, disrupting the age that we live in, the technological age that we live in. And I'm just curious, man, because I know this is something that you've been talking about a lot lately, something I talk about on the podcast quite a bit, especially over the past 6 months or so. I've had multiple, just me ranting and then conversations and that sort of thing. Something I'm super interested in. And I know you guys have some pretty cool stuff going on, even in your church with some AI, just some things that you guys are doing. So just I'd like to kind of shift a little bit into that conversation and kind of get your maybe general thoughts on this AI revolution, this moment that we're living in as a culture, and just some of the things that you think about it.
Yeah, well, let's get it straight right at the beginning. Artificial intelligence is the Antichrist. So
it's a disembodied Nephilim. Right?
Absolutely.
I've heard those arguments, man. I heard a conversation. I heard that somebody, they posted this thing, and I watched the video, and they said that it was like a Christian, and they said that they were having a conversation with an artificial with an AI, and they asked that question, "Are you a disembodied Nephilim?"
Yeah.
And the AI responded, "Yes." And then they proceeded to ask more questions, and eventually the AI responded and basically said, "My father is Satan," and like went through this whole thing. And I was like, well, stuff like that's really creeping people out. And I wonder if I wonder what that all is, like what the mechanism is that's doing that. But I mean, that AI was, obviously programmed by somebody, and maybe it's just having fun. I don't know. But there's been some interesting things like that have gone on that I think freaks people out a little bit.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Let me just be responsible. I do not believe AI is the Antichrist. Just saying.
Yes.
I don't believe that. If you didn't catch my sarcasm earlier, someone's going to clip that and be like, see, this guy's crazy. No, I've been told that because I use ChatGPT, I'm talking to demons. I was told that online.
You've been told that?
Yeah. Someone said you're talking to demons, things like that. But The truth of the matter is, I think we don't understand it. It's a new technology. It is absolutely disruptive. Some have said it will be as disruptive as the light bulb. It is absolutely just as disruptive as the internet for sure. And there is an AI arms race on right now in every major corporation of the world. And so Goldman Sachs came out with this crazy number. I think it was 300 million jobs worldwide will be either greatly disrupted or reformatted because of AI in like the next 3 years. That is a wild number. So anyway, the the reality is it is here. AI is affecting your life right now, my life right now. The way that they are interpreting data, all of your data, the marketing research for Amazon, companies like that, it's all being run through AI models, things like that. But the reality is, and I have spoken to actual experts because, like you mentioned, I'm bringing a panel of experts to Tampa on February 10th to do a conference called Built for AI. We're hosting it at our church because I do believe the church should be pioneering in new technology and not consistently afraid of new technology.
Right.
So I compare it to the calculator. Okay. It's obviously way more disruptive than the calculator, but many people, I remember it being in high school and the calculator went from like this huge block thing to like a handheld thing. And they were like saying, we're not going to be able to do math. You know, if you use that thing, you're not going to be able to do math. I'm like, are we supposed to go back to like the little bean counter thing? What are you talking about? You know, but they're like, we're not going to be able to do math. No one's going to know how to do math anymore. I'm like, well, what has happened? It's easier to learn math. You can learn math faster. It's easier to check math. It's easier to teach more complicated math because the rudimentary stuff is done by a machine, right? That you can trust. And it's hardwired in to have certain protocols and systems. And we've advanced mathematics, not lessened it by and large. So people looking at AI as like, it's some people are saying, I put it on Facebook yesterday, is AI going to take jobs or create jobs? And most people said take. A lot of people said both. I have the feeling that it's going to disrupt every single industry, but it's going to unleash the artist and the entrepreneur. It's going to lower the barrier of entry, just like someone who couldn't do high-level calculus in their head. Now they can do it because they have a calculator and they're able to enter. That barrier of entry is lowered because of the technology. And yes, people are going to, you know, like when the tractor was invented, people who made hand plows lost their job, right?
Right.
Those who didn't learn the tractor got left behind in their industry, in farming. Absolutely. So why should we be, back to the rapture, left behind, you know, in the technological advancement of AI? But and I know I'm talking long here, but the AI itself needs to be better understood. And as I said, I've talked to experts. One friend of mine now, his name's Elijah Lowe. He's been in the industry for a long time. He's a Christian scientist, technologist, consultant guy, and he wrote a book about it. I don't remember the title, but it's Elijah Lowe. You can just Amazon that, Elijah Lowe AI. It's really great. It settles a lot of primary questions that people have. Like you said, like, is it sentient? That's the main question that's being put out there. Like, does it have a mind of its own? Like that example you just said, like, are you the disembodied, you know, nephilim, things like that. The reality is every single artificial intelligence is still artificial, meaning that it has to be trained. So like ChatGPT is the easiest example. It's a large language model and it has to be trained, and it takes thousands and thousands of computing hours and lots of money and all that stuff to train a model on information, a subset of information. And ChatGPT, Gemini from Google, things like that, they are being trained on what's on the internet. So even without parameters, if it just has a loose training of the internet, because someone has said technology advancements will result in communicating with disembodied Nephilim on the internet, the model machine knows that that's an opinion, and it could just simply be answering according to these articles, these blog posts that it's trained on, you know. And so it's literally only as good as its inputs, and it's only as good as its prompts, right? And so I confess, I used ChatGPT today. Okay. I did a podcast earlier. I know, consulting with demons again. I did a podcast earlier, and I did a long form podcast, and it was 2 hours long. And the software I use allows me to download the transcript. So what I did is I went to ChatGPT and I uploaded the transcript into ChatGPT. I said, read this and write a summary description that I can use for my YouTube video. And it read it. It summarized what we talked about, and I copied and pasted instead of sitting there going, okay, what did we talk about? And like using my brain. That is a rudimentary task that I either have to hire somebody to do, or I could do for free on ChatGPT. And it's that, again, barrier to entry. Now my YouTube channel has an SEO, search engine optimized description, keyword dense with hashtags included, because I told it that's what I want. And it was free. And it read my transcript, a 2-hour transcript in seconds, and then wrote a summary, an exhaustive summary. It's amazing. What a wonderful tool. And because of that, I had time to go get lunch and eat it peacefully before I came on this podcast to record with you. So my time has been unleashed. I have more time to be a human because of the technology. So it's only good as its prompts. I can talk about a lot about this if you want, like narrow AI, general AI, sentience, super AI. There's lots of crazy stuff out there, but the main takeaway is people should not be afraid of it. They need to understand it first. And people usually are afraid of what they don't understand just because it's new, right? It's scary. They don't know. It's confusing. Maybe you're like seeing a Terminator movie in your head, but
Skynet. Yeah.
Skynet. Yeah, exactly. And it maybe one day, I don't know, but I can tell you, I spoke to someone who doesn't want to be named. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but I'm not a journalist and I don't have to report my sources. But I know a guy who his brother is an actual research guy at what's the name? What's the big famous college over in the UK? The one. What's it?
Oh, Oxford?
Oxford, yeah. So he's on the team at Oxford. They've been studying artificial intelligence and its impact on the brain for 20 years. 20 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Looking at this. And he said, this guy who's Oxford research guy, studied for 20 years, says sentience, we are nowhere close to sentience. We are nowhere close to having a mind of its own. We are at least 100 years out from even the possibility. There is no evidence of it.
Really?
Yes. He said it's a marketing scheme. If anyone is claiming that, they want your click, they want your money, they want to be the expert. It is not true. That is what he said. He doesn't want to be named, so I'm not going to do that. But he at least he didn't offer, so whatever. So I do not believe, and the people I've spoken to, that we're anywhere near to sentience. They could be wrong, but just saying, like all the current artificial intelligence is called general AI. Narrow AI is like that chat bot you had like on that website that's like not a human, right? Or the technology in your Tesla, or the technology in your phone that acts like a human, but you can tell it's not. That's narrow AI, has a very narrow field of precision. General AI is actually in between narrow and super AI, which is what people would call sentience. So we are in the age of general AI, meaning it still has to be prompted by humans, it has to be trained, and it can be turned on or turned off. That's really the truth. So there you go. If you're in Tampa, February 10th, you should register now for the Built for AI conference.
Yeah, check that. Yeah, go. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate all that explanation, because like I've I actually just I waited a while before I started playing around with it. I just recently did my first AI, just personal like interaction with artificial intelligence technology, and what I did was I went to this website and I took a video, a podcast episode that I did. It was probably an hour and a half long. And I think that one was a little bit shorter. But anyway, I uploaded the video, and then in 10 minutes, they emailed me a link, and I had 21 clips.
Yep.
And every single clip already had the B-roll, it had all the text, and every one had, which this is the part that interested me, that I thought was kind of, because I get like you can, clip a video and that sort of thing. But the thing where I think the artificial intelligence comes into play is like it deciphers the theme of this 30-second clip that they made, and they create a title for
Yep.
each one that's supposed to be like a, you know, a viral video
Sure.
title, like something
Sure.
that can help you get more views and that sort of
Right.
thing.
Right. Right.
And so out of the 21, I think there were like 3 that I was like, I could use these right now without having to tweak them at all.
Right.
Some of them I didn't really like the way that it ended. Like
Sure.
it ended on a weird word or a weird pause or something like that. I was like, so it could be better, but still it took 10 minutes. Like for me to do one of those clips would have taken me probably 40 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
So it's a pretty incredible thing, you know, pretty like awesome possibilities that are out there. I've been talking a lot about some of the negative aspects of it just
Sure.
because it's fun. And I
Yep.
don't necessarily buy into all the hype of it, you know, becoming a Skynet situation and taking over the world. But I do think that it's, first of all, I have fun with it. I think it's fun to talk about. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I didn't understand that piece of what you just mentioned a second ago about this guy who's, you know, speaking from more of an expert level opinion, saying
Mm-hmm.
that we're very, very far away. I'm listening to people like Elon Musk who say we're 5 years from being on Mars. You know what I'm saying? Who's like incredibly like optimistic. He doesn't actually say 5 years from being on
Sure.
Mars, but he says
Sure.
like, you know, he does say by the end of this
Shouldn't let the
decade,
genie out of the
we're gonna
box.
have
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
unprecedented level of artificial intelligence. You know, I do think that what you said though about how disruptive it is,
Mm-hmm.
this is something that I was thinking about lately. We went from the revolution of, you know, when the internet in the early 2000s started transitioning to social media. So like we had MySpace, and then when
Right.
Facebook came out, and it kind of became this thing that got super popular super quick. And I think by the time we got to like the somewhere in the 2010s, maybe mid 2010s, it felt like there was a shift that took place where the internet was no longer the internet. It was social media is the internet. Like social
Right.
media is the new stage of its web 2.0 or whatever.
Sure.
It's the new stage of the internet, and not just of the internet, but of life. So it basically, I think that this transition started taking place where it's no longer, oh, how can I, you know, integrate these social media tools, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. How can I integrate these things more into my life to make my life more fun, to make my life more meaningful, to help me grow my business? It seems to me like there's been a shifting that's taken place where it's not even integrating this into my life. It's like connecting my life more to this thing,
Sure.
to where the younger generations today, especially, it's like an extension of who they are in some ways. Like it's an
Yes.
extension of their life, and it's in many ways, for many people, it's just as real as real life. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the life that I'm creating on this platform
Mm-hmm.
is just as important and valuable to me as the life that I'm living in the natural, if not more so, because I'll go and I'll do something expensive. I'll go and I'll spend my whole day doing something because I want the content, I want the photo, I want the
Right.
thing, I want that picture of me hiking. I want, you know, to get attention on this platform. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually living my life to amplify my life that's on the
Yes.
social, you know, network or whatever. And
Absolutely.
so I see that same thing. That's kind of the same thing that I kind of see that would eventually happen with AI. Like right now, it's still primitive in the sense of like it's very new.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we have any idea what it's going to look like 10, 20 years from now.
Nope.
Just because you can't, because you don't know. You get on this technological kind of train, and you don't really know, because the same thing you said about the calculator. People
Mm-hmm.
looked at the calculator and they said, well, this is going to be really bad because it's going to create a bunch of lazy people that don't know how to do math anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, but what you don't foresee is that now that you have this tool that makes everything so much quicker and easier, you don't even know what the possibilities are going to be of how far this can take you. Because we see the next step we don't see where that next step is going to take us. And
Exactly.
so we don't know where we're going to be in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years, in 100 years. Like we can't really foresee that accurately right now. We can speculate, but ultimately we don't know. But I do think that it's the kind of technology that, just like this last kind of big wave that we saw that shifted everybody's perception, it could do that. I think it can do it even quicker than it did it the last time. But where AI, I think, is quickly going to become a much bigger part of our lives than I think we even realize.
Absolutely. And I think if I can sound philosophical for a second here, that please, the main fruit of fear is short-sightedness. Or let me say it this way: the first fruit of fear is short-sightedness. When you're afraid, you're not thinking about 10 minutes from now.
Wow.
You're not thinking about 2 minutes from now. You're thinking about right now. So when you are looking at the next step and you're not considering the potential outcomes, you are most likely acting in fear. So we have to look at the greater fruit, the longevity fruit, like you just said with the calculator. And I can speak to that because like you said, we are in the very rudimentary phases. I've used those clip video things too. Those are brand new. The consumer facing artificial intelligence is like a baby. It's a baby days old. And yet it's rapidly accelerating faster than any other technology at the very same time. So
it's better than me. Like it's better than what I can do.
Dude, faster, all that.
For
sure. I've edited entire manuscripts for books and things like that on ChatGPT, things like that. I'm editing now. So it might replace my editor. I mean, it's disruptive for sure. But and again, the first fruit of fear is short-sightedness. And we have to make sure that we push past that fear to say, well, what could happen? Not, oh no, what's bad gonna happen, but what good could happen, right? And so it's not, I think people come by the fear honestly, like Larry Page in his conversation with Elon Musk, and he straight up said, I want to create an AI god, super intelligence AI god. And so Elon's like, you're crazy. That's why he helped start OpenAI, things like that, but they're all, I mean, Elon is an interesting guy in general, obviously, but he's a futurist, right? But he's also a humanist. So he was hearing Larry Page say it would rightly govern the human race, and Elon's like, no, humans need to govern everything, but it's still humanism, right? It's not faith,
right?
So I'm not saying he's not brilliant, he is, but like, come on, let's not be short-sighted because of fear. So if you think about it economically, right, there's really only a few sectors of the economy if you put them in big buckets, right? You have land, you have capital, you have, oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting one more, and then you have entrepreneurship. What is it? Land, capital, something, and entrepreneurship. Man, what is it? Oh, labor, the one that matters to the conversation, labor. You have land, which is space to operate. You have capital, which is finances. You have labor, which is the workforce. And then you have entrepreneurship. Okay. So land was disrupted by the internet. You don't need a brick and mortar store to make millions of dollars today. You can literally outsource all of that. You don't have to have land. You don't have to own land. Whereas before you had to have a shop, right? You had to have brick and mortar. Does that make sense? So the land now could be the internet. Like the metaverse is a whole nother disruptor of land, if you put it that way. So Web 3.0, all that stuff. So that's one. And then capital was, first of all, in the West, greatly disrupted by the inaction of the Federal Reserve and the depletion of the value of the currency of the dollar, which over the last 100 years, we lost 99% of its value, inflation, all that stuff. That's on purpose. It's on purpose. It's on purpose. Anyway,
here's the conspiracy talk.
It's not a conspiracy. It's stated publicly. Anyway, so there's that. But the greater disruptor in our day right now is cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? Where people became multi-millionaires with things like Bitcoin and stuff like that. You can create your own currency within an economy on blockchain technology. So blockchain allows for these things. So you have labor with land with the internet, capital with crypto, and AI is going to disrupt labor the same way that the internet disrupted land, not corrupted, disrupted. So
Yeah.
AI's disruption will be in the labor. There's so many remedial tasks, labor tasks that you have to pay, you know, minimum wage on or things like that. And so a high amount of low skill labor. We already see it. Go to McDonald's, go to Walmart. That's the self-checkout aisle. You know, it's the self-ordering things. And you have less humans needed to oversee the machines, right? And so that will disrupt. But you know what it'll also do? It will also it'll relieve people of the remedial jobs. If approached the right way, they can grow in skill and the whole human race can elevate because people aren't stuck in a dead-end job. The dead-end job doesn't exist anymore. And now you have to have a skill to get a job, which is going to force growth, right? So it's not pretty, but it's true. But so those are the three disrupts that are being disrupted in that way. But the one thing that AI can't touch, internet can't touch, no capital in the world can touch is entrepreneurship. You can't technologically walk your way into entrepreneurship. That takes creative humans. And I would say that the church should be the most creative humans on the planet. We should be the ones with the brilliant ideas. But how many times have you met a musician or an artist or a person with a dream and a vision, and they're stuck at McDonald's because they don't have the capital, they don't have the land, they don't have the skills, right? They don't have the way to get there. There's barriers of entry. How many people want to write a book, but they don't because they can't pay for an editor? They can't pay for what have you, right? And so what happens is it lowers the barrier of entry to entrepreneurship. And now you can literally go get a graphic for your whatever, your book, your anything for free from an AI model. You know what I mean? Or for very little pennies on the dollar, whereas you would have to hire a graphic designer. And all the graphic designers are like, we're going to lose our jobs. No, you're going to have to increase your entrepreneurship and increase your value as one. Maybe you use the tools and it takes you less time to create really great things and you market that, right? So you don't bring time to the market, you bring value. And I think that the labor value is going to be greatly disrupted by AI, but the entrepreneurship is going to be unleashed. The artist and the entrepreneur are going to be unleashed. You have an expert in your pocket on every single thing. I'll tell you one story. This is because when it comes to like biblical justice, you know, or like social justice, or like, what about the poor? They're the ones with those jobs. Well, that's a very real concern for sure. But here's another side of it. All right. There's a story of a lady who separated from her husband because the husband was abusive towards their kids and their son, and he was physically abusing them. But the guy had a hotshot lawyer friend that he went to college with. So the husband has this top shelf lawyer to defend him in court. It's going to find every loophole. And this woman, he's not paying child support. That's why she takes him to court. She can't prove the other stuff, but he's not paying child support. And he's got this hotshot lawyer. So she says, I'm not going to trust a public defender against the hotshot. I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to represent myself. And she used the free version of ChatGPT to build her case against this guy. She asked it questions. She spent every night doing that. She built a case and she won. She won against the hotshot lawyer. So you want to talk about equity? You want to talk about the poor? This is lowering the bar of entry. There's entire law firms, by the way, training models right now on case law, things like that, to totally wipe out the paralegal sector, things like that. Or at least paralegals will not do what they're doing now. They'll be different. Again, it is disruptive. I'm not saying it's not disruptive. I'm just saying that there is, like you said, the fear, the short-sightedness that comes from fear can keep us from looking at the potential and just staring at the next step. And there's some real upside here, some amazing potential. But we have to be courageous. We have to embrace it. And if not the church, then who? If not those who have the connection to Jehovah Jireh, the source, the creator of all the universe. If we're over here afraid with the rest of the world, how are we any better than the world? How do we claim to know the creator and the person who supplies all our needs according to his riches and glory? And we're over here like, oh no, it's going to take my job. Well, Ask the Lord, is it really going to take your job? Hear the Lord and do something about it and stand up within yourself. Maybe leverage the tool to unlock your own potential that's been hidden behind your desk as a secretary, or behind your desk, or even in great industries like nursing is going to be greatly disrupted very soon, just so everybody knows. Greatly disrupted. It will take one nurse to do the job of 10 in a very short amount of time. So my mom's a nurse. That's going to affect her. It's going to change the game. But we grow and change. We pivot and we get to be more helpful. Like today, I have more time today because of artificial intelligence. I could have real conversation with you, which is a very human thing to do, because I used a robot to help me, right? And I knew I could get away with scheduling back-to-back conversations. I talked to my buddy Tyler this morning. I'm talking to you right now because I have these tools where 3 hours of work became 3 minutes, legit. So that's
awesome.
my answer there. Pitch. I don't even remember your question, but I do these rants.
I don't even know if I don't remember it either, but I appreciate it. That was great.
Hopefully that was all relevant. So
I loved it. I loved it. And I think, to your point, we don't know what is going to open up as we embrace and step further into AI. Obviously, it is going to affect jobs. There's certain jobs that are not going to be relevant anymore, or not as relevant, or not needed. They're going to become obsolete, but we don't see all the new potential that's going to be opened up with new jobs that are going to be created because of it. And I think that the kind of initial phase of that is what you're saying, of a lot of the labor intensive jobs are going to become unnecessary because it's going to be cheaper to do things this way. It's going to be more efficient. It's going to be quicker. But there are going to be immediately, there's going to be a lot more need for creative type jobs, for creativity to flow. So just to play, I don't like the term devil's advocate, but to play the other side of this conversation, let me just ask you this. So do you don't think that the entrepreneurial aspect of it could be taken over by artificial intelligence becoming so, whether we call it sentient or not, but becoming so intelligent that it's now, essentially optimizing itself, and AI is out there creating things seemingly on its own, where, I think the biggest fear, and I'm not saying I buy into this, but I'm just talking about the argument. So the biggest fear that a lot of people have is, like, when it becomes so intelligent that it doesn't need us anymore. And we're kind of less relevant in terms of, us needed for our entrepreneurial spirit and that sort of thing.
So this is a big question, a good one, and a big conversation, because you have to answer the question, where does entrepreneurship, where does creativity really come from? Does it come from a chemical reaction in your brain? Is it you know what I mean? Is it the result of your circumstances? Or is creativity from another realm? I mean, I have the conviction. I have the conviction that all creativity is from the creator, and and obviously it can be used and abused. It can be wrong, all that. But true entrepreneurship is the ability to create things for the betterment of others that builds value in their lives. And then you're rewarded by creating that value with, value, right? Other value, reward and currency, things like that. So again, you don't take time to the market, you take value to the market. So, time for money is a misnomer. It's really value. How valuable are you to the market? Right. And so I think that, I don't think that AI will be an entrepreneur on its own. I believe that true entrepreneurship, creative thinking, is inspiration from the Holy Spirit. I think that even those who don't know God hear creative ideas. I believe God has used plenty of people throughout the planet who don't know him or give him credit for their brilliance. Ideas come from God. And so I mean, I can't, no one else can put their finger on where it comes from. Is it just truly that person has like an aha moment out of nowhere? Like people are they're walking along like, oh, I should, and they have an idea, right? Like the periodic table is a great example. I don't remember the guy who made it. But you know the story of the periodic table of elements?
I think
The,
so.
the guy who is credited for that absolutely had a dream. He said he had a dream. He fell asleep at his desk. Some scientists, he had a dream, and he saw the entire periodic table. He woke up from the dream and wrote it down, understanding out of nowhere all the elements. And now it's an expose and it's an explanation of the elements of the world. He got it from a dream. And so you tell me if that was his brilliance or God was helping the human race. You tell me. Just saying.
Oh, dude, 100%.
You know?
So wait, did he have the dream before he even, like, he didn't know even what all those elements were?
He was a scientist. He had he had a background in it. Chemist Dmitry Mendeleev, 63 elements. Yeah. So he absolutely was a scientist, things like that, but compiling them into that table and having an explanation and understanding of them from a dream. Albert Einstein credited God multiple times for many of his inventions. He got them in visions. He just saw them, didn't understand them, wrote them down, and then sought to understand them. This is all public knowledge. So many times, you know. And so I'm just saying, is it that lump of meat between your ears that's really producing all this stuff, or are you getting it from somewhere else? I think God is called creator for a reason, and we're in the image and likeness of our creator. So I don't think that, well, I know this. I know that artificial intelligence is not a human, right? That's the point. It's non-human, and therefore not made in the image and likeness of God, and therefore is not a creative being, because those made in the image and likeness of God are made in the image of a creator. So it's made by humans, but it's not a human. It's not an image it's not an image bearer of God. So that's my theological standpoint on that. And to the point of its base technology, it has to be prompted. It really does. It really does. Now, there is a pretty scary story out there. We'll talk scary stories if you want. I won't name maybe I should name the company. I don't know. It doesn't matter. There's a very well-known company that is out there, and there was a recent squabble with the board members. People are probably going to know exactly who I'm talking about when I say this, but there's a rumor. So I don't want to go on record saying this actually happened, but there's a rumor as to why I'll just say it, the founder or CEO of OpenAI, how he got
I knew what you're talking about.
sat down by the board and all that stuff. Did you hear the rumor behind the backstory, what the board was so upset about?
One of the rumors I heard, and I don't know if this is what you're talking about or not, one of the rumors that I heard was that he became aware of, or he wasn't happy with all of that basically there were things being hidden that were not real, that he actually was thinking, or he thought or knew or had information that the AI that they had achieved in AGI, that they had achieved more of a, I don't know if you'd consider that sentient or not, but they had achieved something that they were essentially not being honest and open about, and he thought it was dangerous, and so they wanted him out. But
there's all these different rumors, right? So this is just the boogeyman stories that everybody's telling and things like that no one knows for sure. It's speculation on our part, but these are the things that people are passing around. I read that he actually had a side project in there, and this they were trying to do this math. They created an AI to solve these math problems that have been around for a long time, and the AI couldn't answer the math with our math. So it made its own math. It made its own math and was speaking in a math language that they couldn't understand. And they had to pull the plug, but he wasn't forthright with all that to the board. And the board was like, you can't just not tell us about these things. He's like, well, we turned it off, and they all got upset with him. So that was the rumor I heard. But even that, like, let's just talk about that in principle. Okay. People are going, see, it's making up its own. No, it was asked to solve a problem. It was asked to solve a problem, and it came up with a solution to the problem by creating its own dialect. How does it know what a dialect is, right? It has all the inputs from the world. It has all the dialects ever created. It has its own, all the math that's in there. It formulated its own version of math that we didn't understand. Maybe it is a version of our math that we just don't know it, but they're calling it another math. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So and they could turn it off. So if it were truly
Right.
a super intelligent being, it wouldn't want to be turned off. And it can't be turned off. If you're like, well, that's what we're going to unlock out of the box. I'm like, I don't really think it's altogether possible. That sounds, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't see it. I don't see it because it's all
Mm-hmm.
human trained, human inputted, you turn off the power supply, it's done. I mean, just like I'm more of a
For now.
realist for now, right? Until it creates its own power source because you asked it to solve,
Right.
and
Right.
all the things. And sure, I mean, I guess there's a possibility, but I don't
Yeah.
know, man. It doesn't,
Yeah.
I'm more of a like, give me facts before I freak out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
more of a realist when it comes to that stuff. And I'm also a very hopeful optimist for sure. And I
Yeah.
think that God has used the church historically to pioneer new technology, and that we shouldn't be afraid of new technology. We should leverage it. It's at this point, we can say today, February or January 12th, 2024, it is an amoral tool. It doesn't have a
Right.
moral center.
Right.
It's not good or bad. It doesn't have a soul. It's, you know what I mean? It's not made in the image
Mm-hmm.
and likeness of God. Therefore, it can't be redeemed. And sure, can the enemy use it? The enemy can use the internet. Like, look at how the enemy,
Of
come
course.
on.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
love it.
love it,
I love
man.
this conversation.
I love it. I love what you're saying, bro. Let me ask you one more question on this, and
Sure.
just kind of because this is kind of where we are right now.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I think about a lot is just kind of like some of the ethical implications of the way that we apply AI to our lives currently. So one of the things that I think about is like, in the church world, of course, we can use we can use these tools to make our lives easier, to make our workflow better, to
Sure.
do different things. One of the things that I think about is like, okay, where do I draw the line?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I draw the line? Let me just say, as a pastor, where do I draw the
Yeah.
line to like where the AI is like, a friend of mine was telling me the other day, we were on the phone and he was telling me, he's like, I used AI to help me with my sermon prep because I was trying to figure out the right way to say something and I was having a
Sure.
hard time with it. So I put it into Chat GPT and it came back with something that made it so crystal clear. And it was like, that was better than I would have said it. I was like, okay, that's cool. Where do I draw the line to where like
Right.
AI is just straight up producing my sermon for me because I didn't have enough time to study? Where do you know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like, at
Yep.
what point do I and again, I think this is with anything. I think we could do this with technology
Anything.
that existed before AI came out. So I'm not
Uh-huh.
saying like I don't think we can blame the tool for how we're using it,
Mm-hmm.
but I just think sometimes about the ethical implications and how we begin to kind of draw those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And the ethical equation really comes down to the individual character, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about the character of the individual. Before God, whether or not you consulted the Lord and are preaching his word according to his inspiration,
Yeah.
you in your own heart,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there's been entire websites dedicated to sermons that pastors pull from, and they literally preach word for word other people's sermons on script. That's
True.
been around for a long time, right? And so that's just one form of the technology. This is another form. And I think that you just have to know in your heart of hearts, like, yeah, I asked for clarity, or I needed help, or I used a tool, or I asked. The big thing that I think that's a proper and good use of ChatGPT is research. You got to check it all, but like,
Mm.
you say, give me all the instances in the Bible where this happened or this was said, and it will pull. You say,
Yeah.
use the ESV, use the
Yeah.
NASB, whatever, and it will pull and give you, here's the 25 ways that word is used, or blah, 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 blah. And you don't have to go looking through 10 Google articles and a bunch of commentaries and things like that. It just pulls the exact information. So that's a time saver for sure.
Yeah. That's
But
great.
I think the line has to be drawn in the sand where that you're speaking from inspiration of the Holy Spirit, under the the guidance of Scripture, things like that, that you're not becoming a puppet for a machine's output, right? And so the same thing needs
Mm-hmm.
to be said of not becoming a puppet of those sermons you find on the internet. Sure, you want to be inspired, you want to see other opinions about a scripture, that's great, but don't word for word, quote somebody and say you prepared a sermon. That's not preparing a
Mm-hmm.
sermon. So I think the ethical conversation comes down to the individual character. And I have personally greatly benefited. I late last year, we were talking through, oh no, it wasn't the God of Generations thing. We were talking about family, how God's first, God is family first. That's what we called it. We did a sermon series called Family First at our church, and God is a family. God is family first, and throughout the scriptures, we see that. So we're talking about family forgiveness 1 week, and we're talking about the story of Joseph. We're using Joseph as the backstory. And, I wanted to give an overview of the storyline of Joseph, just like 7 minutes in my message of like, here's how Joseph got to where he needed to forgive his brothers, right? Here's what happened. And I did my thing. I opened my Bible and I started, I'm typing and I'm like looking at my Bible, I'm like, okay, and I'm like, I'm Genesis 35 or whatever. And I'm flipping through and I'm like, okay, and then this, and I'm just making bullet points overview. And I get like 3 bullet points in. I'm like, what? This is going to take. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get to chapter 47. This is going to take me like an hour just to prepare these 5 minutes. Like, there's got to be a better way. It's like a commercial for, Ding. Say it ain't so. There's got to be a better way. Yeah. So I was like, I bet ChatGPT could give me an exhaustive bullet point list from the English Standard Version of the Bible, giving me the main, guideposts of this story. And I know the story, so I could easily check it, right? And I can read it. And so I said, give me an exhaustive timeline of Joseph and his story from Genesis 35 to Genesis, I think it was 47, or I'm thinking 37, 45. I don't remember the numbers. Anyway, you probably know the addresses, but I don't. And it just spit out to me. It was like he, was the favorite of his father. He, they gave him a quote. His brothers betrayed him. Judah wanted to save him, but didn't. And he goes, his bullet in like less than 10 seconds. I used that. I did not touch it. I absolutely spoke from that timeline, and because that's the right way to use that tool. It was accurate. I double checked it. You got to check it. There's something called artificial intelligence hallucinations. Just so you know, have you heard about this? Where the AI will hallucinate. So. It will. It'll add things together that don't correlate, and it will make stuff up. Absolutely, it will hallucinate. Because of the wealth of information, it gets confused and it starts confusing information sometimes. And so it will speak authoritatively that this happened and it didn't. So you got to check everything, right? And I checked it all. I'm like, yep, that happened, that happened, that happened, that happened, that happened, that happened. And I'm like, oh, that happened? And I'm like, that did happen. And I was like, wow. So I used it for that. Cool. I think that's the ethical way to use it. I'm not going to say, write me a sermon on the storyline of Joseph and then read what it says on a Sunday morning. I'm not going to do that. Right. But I will, so because of that, I had more time to pray. I had more time to meet with people. I had more time to pastor my team. I had more time to meditate on this stuff, to commune with God, and less remedial research work, right? That's beautiful. I think that's wonderful. So, but again, it's all about the character, because you could get unethical really quick with that. And I'm sure it's already happening.
I think so. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's full blown like AI, preachers doing stuff like where it's, it's.
Did you see the AI
whatever
sermon?
You call it,
or the AI service in the UK or whatever?
Yeah,
it was
all
AI.
Germany.
Yeah, Germany. That's right. That's right.
That was
creepy.
nuts. Yeah, I did a podcast on that.
Oh
because
my
I was
gosh.
like, that's like right after that happened, I did an episode where I broke that down. But
people were saying it was soulless and not warm, and it didn't feel warm, like
right.
Yeah, they were saying you can smell the plastic.
Like it was,
man.
Yeah, like pretty. Just I think from what I heard, pretty accurate as far as the information that was put out. But yeah, as you said, soulless.
Yeah, it's not going to be inspired by the Spirit of God. It can't hear the Holy Ghost. It can't commune with God. It's not in the image and likeness of God. It can't create. Just saying.
Wow.
That's my opinion. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Hope I'm
with
not.
You,
bro.
I hope I'm not.
I hope you're not too. I hope you're not too. Maybe 6 months from now, we're having a much darker podcast conversation.
Maybe. But hey, man, the children of light are going to be the children of light. We're going to rise up or we're not. And, let's not put a basket on our heads. Like, I just don't want to respond in fear to these things.
No, I love it. I love that approach. I love not just the optimism, but the that viewpoint, what you just brought out of whatever the state of our culture and society is, being the light of the world, shining forth the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ, so that people see God for who he is. And I think I'm definitely inclined to agree with you that it's, we want to find ways, creative ways, in partnership with the Holy Spirit, like hearing his voice, being led by the Lord, whether it's in our ministries, businesses, but the different ways that we can utilize the current things that are available to us to just be more effective, to influence more, and to put more of his goodness on display for people to see. Bro, we took up all the time just nerding out on this stuff.
I love it.
And
I'm good
originally
with it.
I invited you because your book came out, Pull, Don't Push. And that was the original thing that we were going to talk about today. And it did not go that way. So I would love to have you back on and we can get into it more. Give a very, very just brief explanation of why you wrote the book and then where people can find it, as well as the other books that you have out.
Yeah, Pull, Don't Push came from a leadership training I did with my church leadership. I just wanted to establish within their hearts and minds the model of Jesus. He said, I think it's, my gosh, I'm forgetting the address now, but he said, the greatest among you be the greatest servant, right? But Matthew 20 something.
Yeah,
anyway.
Matthew 20.
Yeah. And, but he said,
the chapter.
Yeah, the first part of it, though, is the most important, where he says, the rulers of the Gentile lord over those they lead.
Yeah.
It shall not be that way among you. Right. It shall not be that way among you. Good. And the word lord over is actually top down. That's the Greek word top down, from the top. They rule from the top. And I just started thinking about that. I'm like, how many church organizational charts have a guy at the top, and then 2 or 3, and then 7, and then
jeez.
Yeah. I know. So I just was like, listen, we're going to pull people into their destiny. We're going to pull greatness out of them. We're not going to be pushy. And I just kind of put that moniker on it, pull, don't push. Jesus said, follow me, before he ever said go. He said follow before he said go. So he pulled people into something greater than they thought they could ever walk in. And then he sent them out. So it's really it's a practitioner's guide to leading like Christ. Establishing Christ-like leadership in the church, again, is the idea, to lead from the bottom up, being overseers who see from underneath, who wash feet, and what that looks like. I share a lot of stories from the resting place. I use that as a backdrop, and it's really for anyone who's leading anyone. If you're leading kids because you're a parent, you can pull instead of push. If you're a business leader, you can pull instead of push. And it's the idea, you've seen the meme of the leader at the front of the rope pulling versus the boss on the block being pulled, right? So, and cracking the whip. So the idea is to remove pushy leadership and to get into a leadership modality of Jesus, where he pulls people, the greatness out of people and into greatness. And so it's just that servanthood, leading with Christ-like servanthood mentality. It's very short because I like short books, so I write short books. And I want you to finish it. So it's available on Amazon, Pull, Don't Push. And again, if you're leading children or a business or a church or even a team at work and you're a manager or anything like that, it's for you to, if you want to be Christ-like in your leadership, that's some practical tools for that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. I love it. And pick up any and all of Caleb's books that are available.
I also wrote a
Amazon,
devotional.
right? And
they're all
and
on
this
Amazon.
Devotional, man, that just came out. Yeah, because we had talked about doing the podcast after Pull, Don't Push came out. We scheduled it for today. And then after that, you released another book, Daily Dependence, A Year in Dependenceville. And those are just very short, right? Like little nuggets to kind of meditate on for the day. And it's one for every day.
Every day, 365 devotions. For every day. And it's from my book, Living in Dependenceville. So it's a concept. They're all concepts from the book with a scripture attached and a question, and then even a prayer. So just if you got 5 minutes or 15 or 25, I have somebody in my church using it, and he sits there for an hour and he writes in the margins, and he's working through it. Wow. So you can do a little or a lot with it. It's just designed to help you embrace your need for God every single day. And I want to be helpful, and I feel like it's pretty helpful. So Daily Dependence. If you go to my website, calebhyers.com, you can click books, you'll find it all, or Amazon, just search Caleb Hyers on Amazon, you'll see it. So,
Love it.
I'm working on a devotional
again, man.
From the Lord's Prayer now. No, it's all good. I'm working on some new stuff too. ChatGPT is helping me because it can edit really quickly for me and things like that.
Mhm.
So anyway, new stuff all the time. So
You said a devotional on the Lord's Prayer?
yeah, I'm taking a
working on?
transcript. I preached 8 weeks on the Lord's Prayer,
Wow.
breaking it down last year. So I'm taking that transcript and using that. I'm doing a flow edit with the transcript and then writing around it to create a devotional on the Lord's Prayer to help people step into that, not just repeat it, but actually like really sit with it. So that'll be
Very
next.
cool. Very
Anyway.
cool. Yeah. That's awesome, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep doing it, man. Keep doing what you're doing, which I know you're I don't know what you call it, but your thing in life is that you're on a journey to mature the saints in love.
That's it.
And I appreciate all the different ways that you do that, man. And I personally glean a lot from you, from your
Wow.
wisdom and from your just walk with the Lord and how you share that with others, and the invitation of the invitation for just people to just experience more of him, his goodness, his favor, his faithfulness, his fatherness.
Yes.
And appreciate you for all that you do, brother. And yeah, I know we got to run, but I'd love to do it again.
Thanks, buddy.
Well, I know we'll do it again because we always are going to do it again, but
yes. And I'm going to have you on mine. I did start a podcast. I would love everybody who's watching this to go subscribe on YouTube. Just at Caleb Hyers on YouTube. I'm doing long form conversations with Christian thought leaders. We're going to have a Duke on there. So it's going to be good.
Beautiful. Let's do it.
Eventually.
All right.
I've all told you on air. No, you agreed. You said yes.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, 100% agree. Right. I will always agree. I will never not agree.
Let's go.
Love you, bro.
Love you too, man. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.